आप सब। मैं हूँ आज के एपिसोड की होस्ट इंजी अनीस और आज हमारी गेस्ट होंगी मिस नताशा राही। वो बहुत अरसे से एक्सप्रेस ट्रिब्यून की स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट रह चुकी है और अब इनको इन्हीं अरसे में एक्सप्रेस ट्रिब्यून का स्पोर्ट्स एडिटर बनाया गया है। और ये भी साबित बता दूं कि पूरे पाकिस्तान में ये उन खास औरतों में से हैं जो स्पोर्ट्स सेक्शन की एडिटर है एक बड़े अखबार की। कैसी हैं आप नताशा?
I'm doing well. I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सब सही है। आई एम फाइन एज वेल।
Yes. So thank you for the introduction. I mean, yeah. Uh, so we're here. We're here to talk.
अच्छा, मेरा पहले सवाल होगा ताकि हमारे ऑडियंस को भी ये बात पता चले कि लाइक आपने कैसे शुरू किया अपना करियर एज अ स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट और आप किस तरह स्पोर्ट्स एडिटर बने?
Right. I am an accidental journalist. But I think writing and just meeting people and seeing things. So मेरा जो start हुआ my journalistic career, it started in late November 2009 because one of my friends said that I should give a shot at this new newspaper that's coming up, Express Tribune, and I might like. I'd hired, and I think I am one of those few people who have actually seen a newspaper launch and actually survive for that long. But otherwise, I grew up reading Dawn most of the time, and then there was, of course, the news as well. I think that was an interesting part, and then I was hired as a sub editor, and then I was getting bored while working on the desk. And my editor asked me, editor in chief, if I would like to work as a reporter. And I thought that would be an interesting opportunity because I would get to go out and see, and it wouldn't be like just sitting on the desk all the time. And I had just gotten out of the university at the time as well. Before that, I had worked in the HRCP. So it was a very heavy background because with HRCP, we had worked on inter and intrastate trafficking. So we did quite a bit of research over there on that. And it was just too much. And I think I took this opportunity very gladly is because it gave me that kind of, you know, a bit of escape. And I was like, sports is a great thing because it's not that serious. What can go wrong with it? When I joined and I started reporting, and Tribune got launched in 2010, um, I I really fell in love with this because first thing was that I did not want to cover. I didn't want to cover cricket because everybody was covering cricket in Pakistan. I thought, cricket journalism and not particularly sports journalism. On an odd day, you would say, okay, hockey or squash, because again, hockey and squash had been on a decline for a very long time and Pakistan hadn't won much. But then again, you get to see lots of stories, and I think sports reflects our society and also globally, economies and societies can be very well reflected in sports. And that's why I stuck to that, and I'm still working with Tribune. I had joined the desk now. I'm working on the desk and also reporting, but I'm working on the desk these days. Um, so that's what it's been quite a journey.
ठीक है, दैट्स वंडरफुल टू हियर। अच्छा, आप ये बता सकते हैं लाइक व्हाट्स इट लाइक you know um being a reporter in the sports section, क्योंकि एज अ वुमन आपका एक्सपीरियंस थोड़ा सा मुख्तलिफ होगा फ्रॉम से दोज जो पॉलिटिक्स या करंट अफेयर्स में रिपोर्टिंग करते हैं। व्हाट्स इट लाइक बीइंग अ फीमेल रिपोर्टर इन द स्पोर्ट्स सेक्शन?
I think men don't really like it if you step into their territory. I think that was the first impression I got. Although I have grown up in a family since just two of us, me and my brother, but my father, since I'm the older one, had always to watch the games, or I had grown up playing sports as well. So I realized that how privileged I've been. So that was the first realization that I never thought that sports is extremely it's a male territory till I started working in that way. So that was the first thing. Okay, so you see this invisible barrier that you stumble upon where men treat you differently based on your knowledge of the sport, or whether you understand the game or not. They treat you differently, and often in not looking in a really good way. They look down upon you because they think that you're a woman, so automatically how can you know about sports? So that was the first, thing that I encountered. Even though, and then again, as I said, we're living in a society where people genuine like there is discrimination. If you're a woman, you are looked in a way that you're not an equal. So that was my first experience with that kind of inequality, where I was like, oh no, I know about sports, but I'm not looked the same way. Um, and then, for example, I called up a very famous cricketer. His first reaction was that I must be a fan because he was listening to a female voice on the other end of the phone. So of course, like, how can it be like that it's a woman and she is not a journalist and she's not anything else but a fan? So that was the first, again, which really shocked me. Then you get attitudes like, if I have a good, I have a good rapport with athletes, if I have developed that kind of rapport because I want to cover non-cricket sports, then one of my colleagues, jokingly, he had said that why don't you just try and do something with this person, and he meant it in a romantic way, and I was like, that was extremely unprofessional of you to say that. But and
Yeah.
that's just, so just because you're a woman in this sphere, you feel like you're at first, they look at you amusingly, like, oh, what is she going to do? And then once you do stuff differently, because of course I was looking at things not just in a way that is just sports or a score line. 2-0 is sure is a football score or a hockey score or whatever, but there's so much more that goes behind preparing a team, having these players on the pitch. So I was always more interested in looking at things from human point of view as well. I think those were just right off the bat. And of course, things only get weirder because you meet so many different people.
How on our internet does Pakistan talk about women in sports? Like उसमें जो मिसोजिनी, उसमें जो कमेंट्री औरतों के बारे में, चाहे वो प्लेयर्स हो या वो कैजुअली बस स्पोर्ट्स को या क्रिकेट को देख रहे होंगे, तो उस तरह का तबसरा कैसा है? What have you noticed on our online spheres?
I remember when I went to watch a hockey match. It was all women hockey tournament, and I saw men sitting at the edge of the ground, and they were making all kinds of sexist, misogynistic comments. They were there just to enjoy the movement of female body. I mean, if I have to say, it was horrible. And then they were making fun of if a girl falls down while playing, and then they were making fun of how they don't know how to play, which I found to be extremely disturbing, is because it's the same people who would tolerate men performing badly too, but they wouldn't comment on the personality like that, the way they comment on women when they're playing sports. It was just disturbing, and that makes you realize that how difficult it is. It is extremely difficult for a girl to even get to the ground. That thing also comes online as well. So, of course, attitudes have gotten better than what they were, let's just say, in 2010 or 11 or 12. Things are getting better because even international sports federations, they force their members to promote and develop female sports. For example, Pakistan women's boxing squad, I think it made a international debut in 2016 at South Asian Games. Now, they didn't do it because they really want to develop women's sports. They did it because they wouldn't get the funding from the international body. Of course, again, that's a different story, how what kind of international body rules the. I'm saying that it's a different story of what kind of sexism exists internationally in women's sports, but just generally, I think in Pakistan it's extremely difficult because men still don't take women's sports as a serious sport. And the biggest fight back in the day was that I had to do women's sports, and they'd say, oh, let's just take stories like breaking the stereotypes, that kind of stuff, because it would add color to the pages. Even today, when we look at the online trends and the stories that do well, they are the kind of stories which sort of give men that kind of perception, कि, oh, it's men who are letting women play, therefore it's good. And that is obviously not the case. They are playing despite of how our society and men behave. Um, Online comments on women's bodies is very common, like in other things as well, but more so in sports because it requires women to really put themselves out there. The same way men perceive certain players in a more positive light because of the way they look. If they are matching the conventional female look and the way they present themselves, and of course they have a better chance of having a better following and people not commenting on their looks all the time. So I think these are very primitive attitudes that still exist and you see them online all the time. For example, our female footballers, they won this, they got second position last year. And when they came, one of the journalists asked them, "Do you not feel bad that you're playing in shorts?" Now,
Yeah,
again, that's awful. And we also have people like, again, women's football team is far behind internationally. We have people like Kulsum Hazara. She belongs to a Hazara community, and she was the first Pakistani girl who won international medal for Pakistan in karate, for example. She's pretty darn good at what she does, and she wears that hijab and everything. And her story, I would urge your listeners to go and do check her out.
right.
I'm just saying the difference between the two things is very, you can just look at it and say, okay, this is not, something's not right.
अच्छा, so आपने जब अपना comment share किया था for our campaign, you also like mentioned that you got abused online during your job. So can you please explain to us कि आपके साथ online bullying, abuse किस तरह हुआ, क्यों हुआ, and उसके like उसके repercussions और जो आपको emotionally और mentally deal करने पड़े, वो आप explain कर सकती हैं?
Yes, basically, I think since as a woman, it's very difficult to cover sports is because men are there. And I had been a jurist for a Ballon d'Or from like for 5 years, from 2017. And my first encounter with getting absolute hate, even though I'm relatively unknown, so it's something that I never expected. I did not vote for Cristiano Ronaldo in 2018 because there was a woman who alleging a rape case. Basically, she said
Right.
that Ronaldo had raped her in 2008, and then he had also paid hush money. And we found out about hush money because there was this international leaks that showed these documents on various things. Giving hush money was one of the things that came after a very long time. So I, as a journalist and as a female, I did not want it to vote for this guy who can be a rapist. And I felt such solidarity with this woman because Ronaldo is one of the most prominent people
Yes.
on this planet.
Yes.
And still, she went ahead and she and her lawyer were doing these press conferences that no one was showing up to. And I thought I can't vote for this person. And of course I didn't. And when Pakistani fans they first saw that I did not vote for Ronaldo, they said, please resign. And that became a whole, it snowballed into a whole hate campaign. I still get hate mail for that. I still get hateful
So
tweets for
the
that.
funniest thing in all this is that कि like एक बाहर के बंदे के लिए हमारी आवाम ने फैसला किया है कि हम उसको डिफेंड करेंगे and we will bully our own person.
Yes, so they were like, I get death threats as well, and then people would comment on my picture, oh, you're so ugly, so you wouldn't want to get raped by Ronaldo, or probably you did this because you wanted to get some attention or something. And none of
That's
that
all.
was true because the previous year I did vote for Cristiano Ronaldo, and even that year in 2017, I could feel that a lot of people thought that, oh, this she's a woman, so probably she shouldn't be voting from Pakistan, and there should be some male person who should be voting and whatnot. So and again, internationally, I became a news. There were Reddit threads on it. I didn't check them because I didn't want to get further upset. But the outcome of that was an international rage coming my way, and I had just slept through those 3 days because it was awful. I was like, so many people hating on you. The thing is, you should be. It's true when you look at this list. They pointed out towards my list, and like, it's true. Women belong in kitchen only, and there were in fact lots of female fans of Ronaldo who had been abusing me as well. We hope that your father and your brother also face these kind of charges and blah blah blah. So there was a lot of abuse, not just for
ओके,
me but also for my
नहीं
family.
वैसे ये अच्छी बात इस तरह नहीं है जिस तरह वो आपके घर वालों को शामिल कर रहे थे, that was
Yes,
that's really mean.
that was it was just it was it was a weird meltdown. It was now when I look back at it, I obviously laugh my head off because like, wow, the insanity. But that was the first time when I really felt that it's awful. And I know the political journalists and women who they're on TV, they get this kind of rage all the time, honestly, in Pakistan. And I just respect them in ways that I cannot explain in words. But I think that was, I just slept through 3 days because I didn't know how to deal with it. And then later on, for example, just last 2 years, I am trying to do that was still international. So I was getting hate from everywhere, from other countries as well, and it just became a whole thing. Then in Pakistan, if I wrote this story that Pakistan women's football team coach is doing things in a wrong way, he's abusing former players. There's this toxic environment that he creates, and there were several accounts which verified that he would insult the team manager so much, who was a woman, that she would cry. I mean, and then the Pakistan Football Federation Normalization Committee was enabling this guy, and that guy is still Pakistan women's team's coach. And people were not believing me because I wouldn't want to give out the names of those players in the first 2, 3 articles that I did because I wanted to protect them, right? It became like a thing that, oh, you're just jealous of the diaspora players because we get diaspora players from England and very good facilities, and we had a gap. That's a whole different story. But what I'm trying to say is that even if you do stories which are there for people to see and change their attitudes, they would not believe women. They would find things like, oh, these local women are jealous of diaspora players. And again, pitting women against women is it's the most ancient trick that people use to discredit a party that they don't like or that they feel more favorable towards. So I guess that was a more recent example that I can give you. And then it's just our own people, they do not believe in women when they say that they've been abused or they've been manipulated or they are not given their due. And these people, they wouldn't believe. I'm just a journalist and I'm writing and I'm getting abused. And it's like you're not being patriotic enough, or you're harming your own country by criticizing these kind of behaviors, which was funny and sad at the same time.
Right. And considering that you were getting abused during your job, right? So
Yes.
how did Express Tribune support you in this time? And how helpful had they been?
I think they gave me my space. They didn't fire me when they were getting hate mail as well, because there were people with the Ronaldo thing that they were getting. It was like, please make sure that she doesn't vote or something like that, which is
Yeah?
funny. Yeah, it was really it was hilarious. And then they also
Acha.
sent mail to my publication. They didn't fire me. See, they never said anything to me, and they were, I guess, that was cool because I wasn't fired. I wasn't even like called in and asked कि क्यों क्या किस लिए, except that um I one of my colleagues, they would be like, do you want to write about this? Is there something that we can do for you? And I was like, no, that's fine. That's perfectly fine, because I just wanted to sleep through. And at the same time, my colleagues also said that, it's fine if you're getting this kind of reaction. It probably means that you might have done something all right. You don't have to worry because this happens. And I thought that was nice.
इससे
But
बहुत बड़ी
large,
अच्छी बात है जब आपका एम्प्लॉयर जो है आपको ऐसे मामलों में सपोर्ट करता है और ये भी पहचानता है इस बात को, इस सब में आपका कसूर नहीं। That's a very wonderful thing.
Yes, I want to believe that because again there was no discussion. I think it's just another thing. And in any case, I think it was good publicity for the employer too. The results they're published in the most recognized and oldest football publications in the world, Football France. France Football, sorry. I got published in that. I was the first Pakistani who got published by that publication as well. My article
Right.
was there. So it was a big thing for me. And I think it did carry that I am working in the Express Tribune. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it benefited people. I don't think I had been harmful in any way. And I think later on, I do feel that people haters are going to hate, and it takes time for people to change their perception, I guess. That's
This is
also
one thing I want to ask. So, at least in the Pakistani context, where is this misogyny coming from? Like, आपके ख्याल में ये क्या माइंडसेट है कि कोई औरत एक ऐसी बात कहे जो उन्हें पसंद ना आए, तो उनका लाइक वो पहला ख्याल क्यों आता है किसको गाली दो, या पहला ख्याल क्यों आता है किसको धमकी दो, कुछ और ना बोले इसके बाद से, where does this attitude in your view come?
I think first of all, I think men are sort of insecure every single time a woman speaks up, because if they understand deep down inside that we're living in a patriarchal society. We're living in systems that they have made. So it really hurts them to their core, in their core, when a woman says, no, we do not feel safe. For example, Pakistani women don't have safe spaces to play sports even. To illustrate this point, I can say that men hate it because they feel personally attacked when a woman tells them, no, the society and the system that you've created is not healthy for you or for me. And it also, they hate it because they don't want to change the ways. For example, they can see that in right now women are the most independent, educated in human civilization at this point. We are right, we have more outlets, we have more avenues to express ourselves. So I think it's the basic insecurity that seeps in, and they're like, oh, now what we're gonna do, because we cannot
Hmm.
control this. We don't know how to deal with this even, because our men are not taught how to deal with disagreements. They do not understand what it means to disagree respectfully. Also, because I think it's much more easier to disagree with a man, a fellow man, and fight it out, or just be quiet depending on how strong the other person is. Women in general are softer, gentler, mostly, until
Right.
they're really, really like pushed to that point where they don't want to be. But I think men hate it and they bully us. Basically, it's a bullying behavior, and they want
Hmm.
to uphold the status quo basically. So I think that's what it is. That's where that ugliness, that rot comes from. And they are not, absolutely not willing to change their ways. And when you tell them, and then the added layer is the religion. I don't want to get into it because I know religion can be a very touchy subject for and lots of people, but I'm just
Hmm.
saying that in this way religion is used to control women. We're like, oh, you are not supposed to. But what if a woman wears a hijab, covers herself fully, and still competes in sport, and they'd be like, oh, but still, this is haram because she's not supposed to move
Yeah,
this way.
सही है. And compared to like your incident, आपके ख्याल में how do women journalists in Pakistan overall fare in online abuse? What does that like show about online misogyny in Pakistan?
I think it's just an extension of general behavior and mindset, right? Like, again, why are these women saying what they're saying? How can a woman be as good as a man? And if she's speaking more sense than a man, then why is she doing it? Who's behind her? I mean, their first thought is not, oh, what she's saying. It's like, why is she saying this? But first listen to what these women are saying or what journalists are doing. We are also doing our job most of the time.
Hmm.
If I say that there is an abuse, I'm saying that because I'm seeing and then there's evidence. But again, I can give my reference because it's more accessible to me compared to giving example of other female journalists who I saw get abused every single day.
Right?
So the first reaction, the knee-jerk reaction is, why is she saying what she's saying? And they do not think that probably what is she saying, and if she's saying, is there any truth to it? And a lot of times it makes it easier for these men to abuse women because they are hiding behind a fake name or anonymous
Yes.
accounts. They wouldn't say the same thing on your face. Of course it's scary because they say such violent things as well on these pages. We'll be like, well, if they can say this, they probably can do it too. But majority would be just saying all of these things, showing their true colors because they are hiding behind their computer screen. So again, I think these attitudes are it's the same online, but it's more amplified because people can now at you directly, right? You're getting to hear them if you don't
Ah,
filter them out. Like
yes.
I wouldn't care. Like for example, for a very long time, I was not on Twitter. I got onto Twitter. That's the only platform that I use for work. But I got on Twitter is because I was like, oh, but in this, it's a modern age, so you need to put your work out there and advocate for your own work. The time when I was not on Twitter, for example, I couldn't give two thoughts about what people would say about my work as long as I know that I'm doing good work and I'm writing the truth and I am sticking to my ethics. I'm not doing anything wrong. I was very peaceful. But as soon as I started using Twitter, that's like I can hear those 100 people. If I'm not online, I don't hear them, right?
और आपके ख्याल में, since it's now become a hot topic to regulate social media and regulate this hatred and all these bullying tactics and misogynist tactics, तो आपके ख्याल में हमारे गवर्नमेंट को इस मसले को टैकल कैसे करना चाहिए?
I think it's a good thing that any kind of abusive behavior should be it should be addressed, and there should be more stringent guidelines. For example, Twitter is really bad with that. Or the best you can
Yeah.
do is block or mute people. And what if that person makes another account and they can still see your stuff, and if you're not putting your tweets on
हाँ.
protect protection mode. um the thing is, it doesn't work well for anybody who's getting abused. That's one
Right.
thing that I've realized. And if you want to report, it took me a while to figure out what am I supposed to do with where am I supposed to complain. I think it should be more accessible. The government should need to, set out a campaign which can tell people, and not just for women. There are lots of minority groups, and that I mean all minorities who get bullied regularly and mercilessly. So, what are they supposed to do? Like, where are we supposed to? There is no path, at least not a direct path where we can say, oh, ट्विटर का तो आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि ये एक इंटरनेशनल हुआ है, बट हमारी गवर्नमेंट ऐसा कौन सा पोर्टल बनाती है जिसमें हम कह सकें कि जी. एंड देन द एटीट्यूड इज, इफ यू डू कंप्लेन, ओ ओके, व्हाट डिड यू से, व्हाई डिड यू से दिस, बीबी आपने ये कहा क्यों, आप ये कहती नहीं तो होता नहीं. अब आप क्या उसका क्या आप क्या आर्ग्यूमेंट देंगे? अब मैं वहां पे
Which is
डिफेंड
kind of
करूं?
strange because you are in a position of authority. Obviously, you have to retaliate. और अगर आप उस retaliation में भी आप ये कहें कि आपने ये बात क्यों कही, that's really strange. Because फिर अगर आप कुछ भी ना कहें, तो फिर ये बात होगी कि आपने कुछ कहा क्यों नहीं.
I think, for example, it's one of those things where you have to gauge. I think specifically for women, I think that's where I felt I was more vulnerable, primarily because I was a woman, is because I said something, I retaliated as a person naturally would if somebody
And you
says,
should retaliate. ये तो नहीं हो
right,
सकता कि like आप खामोशी से सहते रहे.
okay,
आपने
no,
जवाब भी देना है.
there were this is something again, be I think I'm a transparent person, so probably whatever I'm saying online is that I really mean it. I did not understand that one can also tweeted out and replied basically to this
Hmm.
person
Definitely.
who was a Pakistani. It was like, Natasha Raheel resign, and I could feel this sort of heaviness where like people are judging me for being a woman and representing Pakistan in this fair. Not that okay, international football and football in general and sports is a toxic field. It requires two human beings to go against each other. It was just I replied, and then the first thing that I was asked was, but you could have also chosen not to reply, you know. And I was like, but I felt very angry, and I genuinely didn't think that, because I replied to this person, it's very difficult for me to vote for a rapist. Don't know how to do that. And I have grown up watching football. I love the sport, but at the same time, even if it's my favorite player, and if a woman is saying that he's raped her, I am going to believe the woman. Football itself be damned. How do you
हाँ, है.
operate on the plane where you say no? You should separate the person from their game. Don't talk about all of that. But he's a great footballer. There was a lot of conversation on that, and I was like, how do you? But this is a sport, right? So I've come from a generation. I'm older than you, for example. I must be older than lots of people who would be listening to
Yeah,
this
definitely.
podcast. But I've grown up looking up to the sports athletes as people who could also be role models. There are
Hmm.
lots of kids who want to play sports and then they look up to these people. Muhammad Ali, of course, he was older, but then again, I grew up watching his fights, older fights, older tapes. There were lots of footballers who are like that. But then it just became such a debate as to why can you not, separate the footballer from this thing. But he's a great footballer. So it was just awful because the first, I think this goes for all the women who are bullied online. I think they're all misunderstood in the sense वो कह कुछ और कहना कुछ और चाह रही थी या कोई सच बात कह रही थी और उसको ले कोई personally किसी ने इतना उसको ले लिया and then it becomes a whole thing because 10 और लोग अपने आप को समझते हैं कि उनके पास एक बेहतर opinion है या फिर and they can say that to a woman because what the hell does a woman know?
हाँ, या ये भी एक एटीट्यूड है कि लाइक उसको क्या पता वो ये क्यों बात कह रही है एंड देन वी वुड बुली हर फॉर एन इग्नोरेंस. लेकिन अगर वो ये भी बात करे, नॉलेजेबली बात करे, तो तब भी हम उसको गाली गलौज से ही जवाब दें.
Or agar if a woman is doing really well, again, if they're not fitting into the conventional mold of what a good person or good woman should be, then these men, they go after her saying all kinds of indecent stuff as to how she became successful. Bhai, we all break sweat, and I think women have to work 10 times harder
Yes.
than men do. And
Yes.
that is another conversation that starts कि oh इसने अगर ये successful है तो ये इसलिए successful है because she must have done some not so nice things, and again it becomes extremely inappropriate and sexist. I mean, do you say the same thing about a successful man? You wouldn't dare, but it's
या
easy.
यू जस्ट वुडंट. आप ऐसे किसी के मर्द के बारे में नहीं ऐसे कह सकते.
हाँ, so
अच्छा,
it's
मेरा आपके फाइनल सवाल. न्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, एक्सप्रेस ट्रिब्यून ने तो आपका भरपूर साथ दिया जब आपके साथ बुलिंग होती थी. लेकिन आपके ख्याल में बाकी न्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, चाहे वो प्रिंट हो, टीवी हो, उनका उनको कैसे रिएक्ट करना चाहिए जब उनका अपना बंदा इस तरह, मतलब उनको इस तरह व्यूज और इस तरह की बुलिंग उन्हें ऑनलाइन में. व्हाट शुड बी
I
देयर
think
रिएक्शन?
I think first and foremost is that one has to be reassured. And I think on an official level, that's something that I never got either. Like officially, I'm told that it's all right. It's gonna be. I was just like, I don't know when. Probably they're gonna fire me. They're probably not going to fire me. Something is going to happen. Something is not going to happen. But I was just so depressed and upset and mentally disturbed that I wasn't even thinking about like what is going to happen. Are they going to fire me in that very way? I was like, maybe they're going to fire me, maybe they won't. So first thing is organizations should give full support and officially tell their employees that we're behind you. Secondly, there should be free therapy and free mental health consultants, and if you can get those for your employees, specifically journalists. Journalists really need that because we have to see mental care sports mein, and again I
Yeah.
get to see some horrible things. People who have political beats or even men who have crime beats, आपके पास होना चाहिए एक सही से आपके पास framework होना चाहिए where these journalists can get consultants who can give them good advice. We also need therapists, in-house therapists in media houses, because I think it would make things easier. We are getting all of this because we're working, right? So this
Yeah.
is a work related stress and depression and all of that anxiety. So I think it'll be great if organizations can take care of it and you don't have to pay from your own pocket, if you're not
That,
becoming a burden to your own family and your friends, because it is extremely traumatic. Of
yes.
course you can say just shut it off and don't take it seriously, but online abuse has an effect and it's not a
Yes,
good
it
one.
does.
Yeah.
ठीक है. और अब इसी नोट पे अब हमारा आज का पॉडकास्ट अब खत्म हो गया है. Thank you so much, Natasha, for taking out time to have this chat with us.
Well, thanks a lot, Injie, and I had lots of fun speaking
Thank you
with
so
you.
much.
Yeah.